Welcome to the Logger and Listings podcast, where real estate investors, experts, and entrepreneurs come together to share their stories and insights. Hosted by Kurt Warner, an entrepreneur and investor specializing in commercial and residential income properties. This podcast is the perfect mix of honest, insightful, and sometimes funny discussions on the world of real estate investing and entrepreneurship. So grab a drink, sit back, and get ready to learn from the pros on Logger and Listings. Welcome to another episode of the Logger and Listings podcast with JFK Properties. I'm your host, Kurt Warner. This week, I have the pleasure of having TJ on this week's episode. TJ is a husband and father of two. He also owns Hockstars Franchise with 2 stores and a 3rd opening in March, and I'll have him tell you all about that journey. He's also starting a real estate investment fund where he aims to raise $50 million of assets under management in 2023. And more recently, he started a website and YouTube channel called the Lotus Brothers and the lotusbrothers.com that aims to give back to the community through financial education. TJ also owns multiple land development projects, not only in Ontario, but also 67 units in Alberta. So welcome, TJ, to the show. How are you doing today?
Thanks, Kate. Appreciate you having me on.
Now, if you wouldn't mind just kind of expanding on the bio that I read, because you have a very interesting journey from where you were even just several years ago to where you are now with the 67 units, land development, and now working on a 3rd franchise of Hockstars opening up. So where did it all begin for you?
I was in the oil fields, like pre-pandemic. I was in the oil fields for almost 8 years. And before that, I used to work for multiple different pawn shops. And my wife and I, again, moved out on our own very, very early. We moved out when we were 15. We had to pay bills and all that stuff, trying to go to high school and juggling everything at the same time. Learned how to hustle, a lot of like buying and selling and like trying to make the bills every month, right? Like you could do it with the job, but then you spend half your day at school, part-time job at home. And then I was, flipping laptops and cell phones and anything you could think of just to pay the bills. And that kind of led into me getting the job at the local pawn shop. And then from there, I learned the inner workings of the business. At one point, it wasn't enough money to pay the bills. So again, I packed up my vehicle, went to Alberta, got a job in the oil fields. And then from there, I got out of that horrible cycle of debt by making more money in the oil fields. So we bought our first house after about a year. This was in 2011 was when we bought our first house, and kind of got complacent. Kind of like we renovated renovated the house and made it nice and stuff. Used to watch a bunch of HGTV. I was obsessed with the income property show, Scott McGilvery's secondary suite show. And I was like, babe, the next place we're going to get, I'm going to secondary suite this, and then our mortgage is going to be paid. And it's going to be amazing. So then I over leveraged that place a little bit, doing the renos, just thinking that it was all easy because I saw it on HGTV. And so we ended up selling that place. I bought the second place. We did secondary suite that, made some good money on that. We lived there for 3.5 years while the tenants paid our mortgage. It was legit, exactly like the show. And then from there, again, I was still working in the oil fields. The entire time, the oil fields was always seasonal, so I always had some free time for a little bits of the year. And in that time frame, we always explored more real estate. So we ended up buying a couple projects here and there that we either flipped or we tried to do a BRRRR, but I never looked good enough on paper to actually do the end part of the BRRRR, where you're like, you go to refinance and you think, oh yeah, this is like the BRRRR model, right? I'm going to go and refinance. And then all of a sudden you go to the bank and they're like, yeah, we're not touching you with a 10-foot pole. And I'm like, okay, so how do I refinance? And then you go and talk to private lenders and they're like, yeah, you just have to give us, your firstborn child, or like cut off a leg, or, do whatever you need to get the refi done. And you're going to be, by the way, you're going to be negative $700 a month cash flow if nothing goes wrong with the house and you manage it yourself and there's zero vacancy. So again, everything ended up turning into a flip anyways, because there was no way I could do the refinance, even though I wanted to keep them. So yeah, the story involves a lot of buying and a lot of flipping. So then pandemic hits. I no longer have the oil field job. Like, there's no job to go back to. I've been putting around doing some random real estate deals, never full time. And I got a call from my old boss from one of the pawn shops I worked at saying he was looking to sell. And at the same time, I joined a real estate program and got heavily involved in the real estate community online. And I figured this is my moment to literally go full-time entrepreneur. So I organized a great deal with my old boss, and was able to get into take over his business. Definitely, we had a great win-win scenario there. Was able to get in with barely any of my own money, which was amazing. And at the same time, joined that real estate community. And between those two things kind of happening at the same time, I had two crazy businesses explode in 2020, where like I had a huge wholesaling and flipping company, and then I had my pawn shop in Wasaga Beach, and they both, ended up snowballing and doing really well. We ended up hiring, growing, expanding from there. And then, fast forward to today, right now, my Wasaga store has almost 15x in revenue since I bought it. Wow. We expanded to we just bought the building for our third store that's going to be opening in March. We're actually going to be a legit franchise. So we started the whole process to franchise our company to be able to sell new locations. So that's happening in the next couple months. We ended up pivoting the flipping company about a year and a bit ago into land development. This was before everything crashed, thank God. And we started seeing these really attractive land deals and these opportunities. And we started getting into the development space. I ended up partnering up with my business partner now, who was a fund manager for his old institution. So between him being a fund manager and me having a ton of real estate experience over the last couple of years, we combined forces and we started our process for a fund. So we ended up joining a mastermind in the States that helped teach us how to do the whole fund creation. A lot of money later and a lot of zeros later, we should be live by the end of this month for our fund, which will be really exciting. And yeah, we have huge goals of scaling it to 50 million this year. We have a lot of interested parties already on the sidelines. So yeah, it's going to be 2023 is going to be nuts. Super excited.
One thing that amazes me about your story is that the time frame. Like, we're talking about 2020 to 2023, and you went from kind of dabbling in real estate, as most of us do when we start off in this business. We're just dabbling before we actually turn it into a business, to now having a fund where you're aiming at raising $50 million in 2023, in addition to, the land development deals, the, third franchise store that's opening soon. Now, there's one thing that I want to ask you about. I had the pleasure earlier today of actually being on a podcast with Catherine Bell, who also owns a fund based out of the US. And she told us her story. And, although your stories are dissimilar, there's one thing that resonates with me that is common. When you were younger, you went through challenges. You went through trials and tribulations. You moved out when you were young. You had to hustle. You had to grind in order to, really just get through that, those teenage years. And I think a lot of people take it for granted that, struggle can actually create character. And then that character ultimately helps us in adulthood go out there and do the things necessary that a lot of other people that maybe had it easy growing up aren't willing to do. So do you see that as kind of being a major factor in kind of pushing you to where you are now as a real estate investor and entrepreneur?
Yes and no. So some people, again, if you're born with a little bit of privilege, take advantage of that privilege, right? Like I absolutely don't think that you need to move out on your own in 15 and have to grind like I grinded. I believe my personality type is a different type of, like, I believe there's all different types of personality types. There obviously is. It's not, I believe, it's a fact. Each person has their own strengths and weaknesses, right? So for myself, I am a very assertive, go, go, go. I don't need anybody to be in my corner cheering me on. I'm going to go do what I need to get done. There's a lot of people though that don't have that push, that ability to take risk when they need to take risk, or take action when they need to take action. So they sit on the sidelines a lot and they consume. So they might be interested in the same thing I am, or they might be wanting to get into real estate or wanting to open up their own business, but they sit scared on the sideline. But they still have all the ability. They're probably smarter than me. They're probably better than me in every avenue. But I'm the one that takes action because that's my personality type. And a lot of people, again, with different personality types, sometimes just need a boost. And that boost can either be a coach, a mentor, a community, a partner, a friend, anybody that they can confide in to have a little bit of accountability and help. I believe that no matter where you came from, if you have that accountability, you're able to, take action better, right? So somebody like me, I don't necessarily need as much accountability as somebody like, investor B who does need that accountability. And I feel like that it supersedes past. And again, just people going through the same thing that I did. I know a lot of people that did, but they're not where I'm at, and they're not taking action the way I am. One, lack of financial education, and two, lack of accountability. So that's a big reason why I started the YouTube channel and the website was I want to fix that financial education part, because like a lot of people can't afford to spend $200,000 on mentorships and business coaches and stuff like I did, or have the ability to be able to raise capital to get into it. But if I can give that knowledge away and help them, they just have to fix that other part, right? Self accountability and momentum and drive. So if they have all the pieces, they can just go crazy, right? So that's a big passion of mine, and that's why you can tell I'm a little passionate about it, because I've been there and I've seen people, and there's still people that I know growing up that are in that same position that could be so much farther ahead if they knew what the government doesn't want them to know, essentially, right? Like they want everybody to be worker bees.
Yep. No, absolutely. And, it's interesting because, you mentioned that you have friends and you probably had, people that you worked with that went through as you mentioned, the same thing that you did, the same thing that, a lot of people did. And they either got stuck or they went back to that, same, things are opened up again, went back to doing the same thing they were doing before, and are obviously going through the uncertainty of it. So what kind of advice do you give on, the Lotus Brothers YouTube show and education to really try to help people? Like, what are the main things you guys focus on?
So my whole goal is to teach the strategies and the mindset behind everything you need to move forward. Because again, people join masterminds and mentorships and programs and hire. They don't hire to, like, they may think they're hiring for the knowledge, but you can find all that knowledge on YouTube. Like everything is on YouTube. You literally type in, how do I get started in real estate? Boom, 55 videos. If you don't like what the one guy's saying, watch the other 54 videos, right? Like it's all there. You don't have to go and pay $30,000 for a course, $50,000 for a course. You don't have to do that. What the courses, like what the masterminds do though, is they bring you into a room where people are just fucking killing it, right? Like they're just, they're taking action way faster. They've done all the strategies that you want to do, and they've learned the mistakes on how to do it faster. So you don't have to suffer in the same way they did, but you can also, what you're paying for is speed. And that's the thing that like resonated with me so much, and why I was able to do so much in such a small period of time. Like you say, 2020 was like not a long time ago. To me, it feels like an eternity. Like it feels like I can barely remember half the stuff I did in 2020, because there was just I did so much and I took so much action. But I also had amazing people in my corner to learn from. lean on and to help, make me not make mistakes like most people would have. Do you know how many mistakes I made between 2021 when I bought my first house watching HGTV and then joining that first mastermind was insane. Okay. I left probably $400,000 on the table between all the properties I did.
Wow.
Okay. And at that point, I wouldn't even spend $500 on a little boot camp. I was so like, I literally, it was getting laid off from Alberta. I had that security that whole time. Like I made really good money in the oil fields when I was working. And I knew no matter what, I'd always just like, if I ran out of money, I'm just going to go, I'll fly out there, I'll work a couple hitches and I'll come back and we'll be good again. And that's always how it was. Like I always just like went back there, worked a couple hitches and I was good. And then it was gone. Pandemic happened, gone. And we just had our baby boy at the same time. So I already had my baby girl, which made me do all the like real estate stuff to begin with. And then the baby boy happened and I was like, holy shit, I gotta step this up. Like time is flying by. I'm almost 30. Like I need to get my shit in gear. I told my mom I was going to be a millionaire by the time I was 30 and I wasn't. So I was very, like I didn't hit my goal. Yeah, it was the family. It was the lack of losing the job. And then me realizing that I did do good when I did it, right? Like I did a couple of flips, we made good money. And like, I thought to myself, like, why wasn't I just doing more of what I was good at, right?
Yeah.
So having the time to be able to do it was one thing, right? Because a lot of people get distracted with their day-to-day and they use time as a big excuse. So I didn't have time as an excuse. That's all I had was time. I was home, I was waking up, like, I got no job to go to. So I just grinded. I had, spreadsheets of people I was networking, like literal spreadsheets from the day I was laid off. I made a spreadsheet of every single name on every single community, on every single Facebook group, trying to like connect and like learn and go. So yeah, it's a big change when you have no security blanket. And that's what jobs do. Jobs give you a security blanket.
No, absolutely. I think, a lot of people just get trapped in that. There has been a slight shift. I don't know if you've noticed it as well, maybe within your, circle of friends, after the pandemic, people getting laid off and people having to look for other ways to make money, to invest and to grow. Obviously, not everybody's going to do it, but I think we're seeing more and more people look for alternatives, even if they haven't made that leap yet. They're aware that something else is going to happen. They're seeing a shift in the economy right now, looming recession or in a recession, inflation is crazy. And like, what do I do? So it's awesome that, you and your brother have, the Lotus Brothers YouTube channel where you are reaching out and teaching people and, joining me here to speak to, my audience about, what they need to do to actually, survive,
Absolutely.
what we're facing right now.
Yeah.
So has your why changed from when you started? Like you mentioned, you had your daughter and you're having your son. Has your why changed as you've seen your businesses kind of develop and grow?
I've always been very, very passionate about my why and my family. My brother has spina bifida. My family is all on disability and government assisted programs and whatnot. And I know I'm the only one that can change all of this. So my why is very deep rooted in my wanting to change the cycle that my name is in, right? Like I want to build that legacy wealth. When I tie my huge audacious goals is I want to build a family office, right? Mm-hmm. A family office that generates, like literally break the generational mold that my family's been stuck in. Mm-hmm. And that's my why hasn't changed. It's just getting stronger and stronger as we go. And I'm just getting smarter and smarter. Like the strategies that I was doing 3 years ago are not the strategies I'm doing now. Same fundamentals, but not the same strategies. I'm growing and I'm learning better. And I've done every strategy you can think of. I've done private lending, apartments, land development, flipping, BRRRRs, bird dog, and any strategy you think of, I've done it. And I'm getting into the rhythm now. I'm starting to get dialed down on and laser focused on what is moving the needle enough where, we have the confidence to start a real estate fund, and we're going to make we're going to be doing very well. And yeah, man, it's exciting.
So when you talk about kind of having the, family business, and you envision that, is it something that you're creating as a legacy for your kids as well as your, family right now, like your brother and, wife and mom?
Yeah, one of the big things, like the reason why I started doing the YouTube, and it's something I never wanted to do. I used to look at a couple people doing it and be like, why are you doing it? You got like 1,000 views. It's like a waste of time. Like, why are you doing it? Social media in general? I would never go on, right? Until I started making those, like I touched on that. I started making those spreadsheets where I was connecting with people. Literally, when people say your network is your net worth, and it's like the most fucking beaten phrase you've ever heard in your life. It almost, like when you hear it, you just kind of like cringe a little, like it's almost like a dad joke, right? Where you're just like, we all know it's true, but it's like really, it's so true. Like, it is not what you know, it's who you know, and what you can learn from them. So what I was getting at was just the social media and the YouTube. I want to just constantly be building that network. Again, I would be on this podcast if I didn't meet you in my network, right? Yep. So again, it's how powerful that is. And going forward, I used to think it was such a bad thing, but then I'm like, okay, well, you know what? Cost me, like, this whole setup that you see behind me. And I took this barn board from one of my flips, just ripped it off. We were demoing it anyways. We put it on the wall. I got a buddy of mine that makes logos. It was pretty cheap. I found this at one of the anime fests I was going on. We painted the wall black, bought a little plant, done. Got some, had the setup from the store already. So I just went in, I took the camera, I took the microphone, and I just put it on the table. And I said, you know what? I'm going to start taking what I've learned here and what I've spent so much money on, an unbelievable amount of money, like a disgusting amount of money that nobody should have to spend that kind of money to learn what I've learned. And I figured, if I can record it, no matter what happens to me, my daughter, my son can always just, hey, daddy's on YouTube still. Daddy's got the recordings. Like, he recorded his knowledge on video, and they can always just watch it, right? And I can watch it too, right? Like, and just remind myself, like, oh, keep my own self accountable. When I do a video now, I look at it and I'm like, oh shit, I'm actually not doing that. Like, I didn't actually do that today. I got to start doing that more, right?
Yeah.
So it's a cool feeling.
I think that's very interesting. And that definitely rings home to me. Like, we started this podcast, and I know we've said it before, probably in one of our first couple episodes, but myself and my business partner, we both lost our fathers. Myself when I was in my early 20s, him about 10 years ago. And, we have kids and grandkids, and we said at the very least, we have a message where our kids and grandkids can hear our voices again, after we're gone. And I think that's very powerful, to actually leave something that can live beyond you. And, fortunately, we have these platforms where not only can we just leave a message, but we can also leave our beliefs. We can leave our knowledge.
Leave the blueprint.
Yeah,
and you can leave a blueprint for them too, right? Like,
absolutely.
Listen, this is all it takes. Whatever you're passionate in, this is what it takes, right?
Yeah, one thing, I know we listen to a lot of the same podcasts and stuff, or we'll like what you post and vice versa. But what you're talking about doing for your family, it reminds me of Ed Milet in the book, the One, where you want to be the one in your family to make that shift and change, not only for everybody that's alive today, but people that are alive, again, after you're gone. And I think that's awesome. So talk to me a little bit about transitioning into a franchise, because that's something that's very unique for our show. We've had guests that are entrepreneurs that, have their businesses, a lot of real estate investors. You're the first person that's come on that, has a franchise. So could you share a little bit about what that process is like to go from owning a business to now transitioning into having a franchise?
Absolutely. So franchising is what I loved about doing this process was again, you have your business, whether it's a small business, it's a restaurant, it's a retail store, whatever it is, and being able to take this business and drilling it down into your all of your systems and all of your operations and everything you do, like all the way down to like how you clean the bathroom and how you lock out the store and how you do this, like all of it is on paper. And we started doing this when we were like hiring, right? Like we needed to hire this position. So we need to know what the tasks are. So we're gonna make a checklist, because like the first hire you do, you don't necessarily have a checklist. You're just kind of like rhyming off shit. You just expect them to know what you want. Mm-hmm. And then that hire obviously doesn't go good. So then you're like, okay, I got to be a better manager. So I should probably document this stuff, create a little bit of a process around it. So after we started hiring, we're like, okay, we're documenting, we're processing, we're doing this, we're doing that. And the franchising aspect was like, this on steroids. Like you need to be able to package your whole business up into a little box, be able to give it to somebody, and then be able to replicate it. So when we opened our second store, that was our proof of concept, where we're like, okay, can we replicate what we did with this store? And then we did, right? And then from there, now we have the confidence to be able to franchise. Okay, so like we did our one, it wasn't a fluke. We had proof of concept, and now we can package it up and go again. And what's really cool about franchises is it is another revenue stream on top of the existing business that you already have. So it doesn't hurt the existing businesses, it just creates a way for you to make franchise fees and royalties. So you can make huge upfront costs, almost like, again, I'm sure a lot of your listeners are understand what a wholesale fee is, right? So a wholesale fee is that quick transaction that you make by selling the contract, not actually closing on the house. Mm-hmm. This is like wholesaling, but for small businesses, where you can make a quick, large transaction, like large cost upfront, where they have to pay the franchise fee. In our case, our franchise fee is going to be hovering around $30,000. Okay, so you pay $30,000 to get access to our franchise. We get that $30,000. Obviously, we have to pay people, do training, whatever. We're not taking home that full $30,000, but that is a good chunk of what we're doing. On top of that $30,000, we then get royalties, right? So we get X amount of whatever they do year over year. So there's that benefit. But what the crazy benefit is the branding. So now you're not just like some random shop in the middle of nowhere. Now you're like a legit, okay, now I got a shop I'm opening up in this geographical area. And you can start doing territorial expansions where you're just, okay, now I'm taking over this region, this region, this region, this region. And now you just become more. And when you look at it for an exit standpoint for your business, or you look at it for institutional, if you're trying to get, raise money for your business, or if you're trying to expand as an individual store, having brand dominance, territorial dominance, and like all of that stuff gives you so much more power in the eyes of the banks, in the eyes of a resale, in the eyes of anything. And it's another avenue of selling that literally it's not you doing it. You're not the one who has to build this up from scratch. You need to help them. You need to make sure that your system and processes are concrete, and that it's replicatable, and that and you're able to help and step in if they mess it up. But again, it's not you, it's not your time. So it's the same idea as hiring one person, where you're buying back a little bit of your time, but instead you're doing a whole store or a whole restaurant or whole whatever with the same process. You're not making all of the revenue, but you are making partial, but you're getting unbelievable free advertising. You're getting unbelievable brand expansion territory. Like there's so much benefits to this. But again, a lot of people, if you tell them, hey, can you replicate what you've done? You have a really successful business, but can you take it, replicate it, and then replicate it again and again and again? Like, can you replicate the McDonald's burger, right? Like exactly. That is such an unbelievable processes that they've built around that company. So yeah, that's why we got into that space. Was and nobody was doing it. That was another
nobody
thing,
like I'm surprised
like there's
other pawn shops, but yeah, I'm surprised that not nobody else, but there's not more of them out there.
So if you look at, and we did a competitor analysis, and like a lot of them, there are multiple versions of their own business. So for instance, I have a Wasaga store, I have a Penetang store, and now I'm opening an Owen Sound store. All of those are personally owned by me. They are not franchises. When I look at my competitor analysis, they are also owned by themselves. They don't actually have a franchises. So when you look at the growth and the expansion and stuff, you have to personally own each one of the ones that you make up. How slow is that, right? Like you're yeah, you can replicate it, but again, it's your time and your hirings that's going to expand on that growth and build each new store. But now you can start leveraging other people's time. Now you can start getting upfront cash that helps you with marketing and scaling and building up their franchises. Now you can build teams around selling your franchise and creating more growth and creating more expansion. And then you can start really working on your business and building the brand as opposed to working on each individual store. Like it's a crazy snowball you can make, and nobody was doing it. And that's a huge reason why I wanted to learn how to do it. And in my industry, it feels a little untapped, right? You know, it'd probably be a little different if you own like a sandwich store and you want to compete with Subway. That would be a little bit more, you know, do I really want a franchise, right? Like there's a lot more competition in that space. I'm coming in and I'm the only one, right? Like, you know, there might be a couple here and there, but you know, even the show Pawn Stars, you know, they don't franchise. They don't sell other stores. Nope. So and they're not even called Pawn Stars. You know, they're called like the Gold Show or something like that. Like in Vegas, they have their own. It's a different name other than the show, but you know, that's crazy to me. Like they have so much social media presence, YouTube presence, TV presence. Like every person that comes in my store is like, hey, this is like Pawn Stars, right? Like this is, you know, and they always drop it, right? So you know, it would be unbelievable if they franchised, but they don't, right?
Amazing that they haven't like thought of it, or like you assume somebody in there or some advisor or somebody would say, hey, you guys have an amazing brand, let's franchise this. And
can I do a shameless plug? Do you mind if I do a shameless plug?
Absolutely not.
So I'm actually right after our call, I'm recording my whole entire process of how I created a franchise, and I'm going to be putting it on the website. So stay tuned, guys. I'm going to be awesome. It's going to be it's going to be good. So
just if they go to the lotusbrothers.com, they'll be able to see that whole process of
absolutely.
Okay.
And if they want to patiently wait, eventually everything will be up on YouTube, and you know, they'll get little pieces here and there. But if they want to pay with speed, they can jump on the website. They'll be there too.
Okay, that is awesome. So make sure people the website will be in the description below, but it's the lotusbrothers.com for that. And TJ, I have a couple last questions for you before we wrap up. And this has been an amazing, you know, conversation. I know that we talked at the beginning before you hit record that, hey, here's some questions that you might ask, but we'll just go free flowing. And I really don't think I've asked too many questions because I haven't been looking at the questions I sent you. So this has been awesome. So when you look forward into your business, is there any lessons that you've learned in the past couple of years that you think are really going to propel you in the next like 5 to 10 years in your business?
The biggest one is getting laser focused. Absolutely. I was the guy that literally, you know, shiny object syndrome.
Yeah.
I feel like I coined that name. Like I literally did every strategy you can think of. I went crazy and I tried to do everything at once. And I built so many different little businesses all at the same time. And that I'm still dealing with today. There's still a lot of like, you know, leftovers that I'm trying to button up and close and maintain and whatever. But if I could give anybody advice, would be getting laser focused on what actually moves the needle. Now, do I regret doing any of those businesses? Absolutely not. I am the type of person that wants to learn the faster, quicker way. Obviously, you could tell by the way I'm talking, like the entire podcast so far. I had to do these strategies to figure out which one aligned with my personality the best, ones that I could create a business around the way I wanted it, the way I wanted the business to be, essentially, right? Like I had to build that I defined the strategy that fits me the best and that I wanted to actually go deep in. So at first you think you want to be a flipper, or you think you want to be a wholesaler, you think you want to buy a small business, but it takes you actually dipping your toes in that water and actually trying to see that, like, hey, was this the right fit for me? And understanding that it's okay to pivot, right? Because a lot of people put shame on pivoting. I think pivoting is amazing. I think if you don't like what you're doing, don't fucking do it. Just finish the deal and move on and figure out a strategy that aligns with you, your personality, your goals, your personal goals, your end goal. Like, everything has to be designed for that. That's why, like, I used to do exercises with my mentees, was like, what is your end goal and how can we pick that correct strategy to help emphasize that end goal, right? If you if you have no money, why you want to be a private lender right now, right? Like, I feel like you got to focus on this strategy to get to this point, then you can pivot to that point, right? Like, there's a different strategy around that. So my advice is, again, stay laser focused. Don't be afraid to try things. Don't go super nuts and create a whole business around something if you don't know you're going to go full into it yet. That's my advice. Dip your toes in the water here and there until you figure out what you resonate and what you like the most with, what gets you up every morning, that you're super passionate, you're super excited, and you're like, I don't want to do anything but this. And literally that's what you do in the day. And there's things in each job, like in each job title or in each business, that nobody likes to do. For instance, absolutely. I hate bookkeeping. So now my bookkeepers absolutely hate me as well, because like I did such a bad job at bookkeeping. But again, I surround myself with people like these amazing bookkeepers that are coming in and, cleaning up and doing really, really well. So like, I can have time to not organize my receipts and do whatever I have to do. I can work on the business. I love sales. I love marketing. I love getting around, like doing that kind of stuff. I can focus on the marketing. I can focus on the sales, and I can get excited to do what I want to do every day, as opposed to, realizing, I have to do all this parking lot stuff that I really don't want to do right now. And to you, it's parking lot stuff, but to somebody else, it's something that they enjoy doing. So hiring people that can do the stuff that you don't like to do, finding people that you can partner with to do the things that you don't like to do, so that you can go really, really quick in what you like to do and wake up and feel passionate every day. Because when that passion is gone, the momentum's gone, you're going to be like, oh, it took me 3 years to buy my first duplex. When in 3 years, you could be starting a real estate fund that's, going to buy 100 duplexes, right? Like yeah.
No, I agree with that. That's a very powerful message. I think, it's one that a lot of people should take to heart, is having that laser focus, but at the same time, not being scared to try things, because you're never going to know exactly what you're good at, exactly what you're passionate about, unless you try it. And I think too many people just kind of sit on their hands and wait for things to happen to them instead of taking the action and make things happen. And last question for you. We're at the beginning of 2023. Obviously, you have a big year ahead of you, a lot going on. But if you were to think to yourself, what is one word that you would like to represent for 2023? So let's say it's 12 months from now. I say, TJ, what is one word that really reflected and represented what 2023 meant for you? What would that word be?
Uncomfortable. I want to be uncomfortable at all points, all the way to 2023. I feel like in the last 3-4 months, I got way too comfortable and things started moving way too slow. I just had this talk with my business partner. I was like, I want that momentum. I want that constant feeling like I'm under stress. You hear Grant Cardone talk about that a lot. He empties his bank accounts every year to feel that stress. Like, I gotta produce, I gotta make some money, like I gotta hustle. Like, that was, again, me back in the day, flipping cell phones and laptops. Like, I had to do what I had to do, right? Like, if not, bills aren't getting paid, food's not on the table. You got to do what you got to do, right? So like, always putting yourself in an uncomfortable position or under stress, so that you can take action and not be complacent, right? Again, that's another lesson for another time that you could say, but like, That's why a lot of people don't do anything. They have their job, they get comfortable, and they don't do anything, right? I had my oil field job. I was comfortable just flying back and sitting in an excavator for 12 hours a day, rotting my brain out, or beating my body to shit working on the oil fields. Like, I was comfortable doing that. And it's until I got uncomfortable and really put myself in a position to not only win, but also lose, is when I started to win, and I started to win big. So
awesome. Well, appreciate having you on the show, TJ. And for people that want to follow you, obviously you have the YouTube channel, but where else can people kind of follow, listen to your message?
Absolutely. Yeah. So definitely, guys, check out the website, thelotusbrothers.com. We have articles going up, literally 2 articles a day. That's one of our big goals this year, is 2 articles a day. We have YouTube is all on the website as well. You can follow me on any of my socials. You look up TJ Ainsborough on Facebook, TJ_Lotus on Instagram, and the Lotus Brothers everywhere else.
Awesome. Well, for our listeners, it's been a pleasure having TJ on the show. Hopefully you guys learned a lot. I know I did. Very inspirational. Look forward to hear, you accomplish all the things that you set out and that you remain uncomfortable through 2023.
Absolutely. And if I jump on the next time you have me back and I haven't completed those goals, make sure you keep me accountable. Rip me a new one.
Will do. All right. Thank you, everybody. Cheers, and catch you next time. Thank you for tuning in to another episode of the Logger and Listings podcast. I hope you enjoyed listening as much as I enjoyed bringing it to you. If you liked what you heard, don't forget to leave a like, comment, or even better yet, share it with other aspiring investors and entrepreneurs. Your support helps this podcast grow organically, and in turn helps other investors and entrepreneurs grow their businesses and have fun along the way. Thanks for listening, and I'll see you on the next episode.